Hi, I'm Anne Gibleault, Creative Director at Phoenix Labs. I'm happy to join the Tomorrow with Rovio podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tomorrow with Rovio podcast. I'm your host, Ben Mattis. When thinking about guests and thinking about how to explore the future of entertainment, obviously there's some people that I want to talk to who are just super focused subject matter experts, thought leaders in a very particular area. But I also find it interesting to talk with people who've just done a lot of stuff, who've been in the career had their career in entertainment and been working professionally for quite a few years, and who have done a variety of different things, and so who have a perspective on where the industry is going that is sort of born from experience. And my guest today is someone I've known for a long time. Her name is Anne Gibleault. I've worked with her as an animator, as a manager, as a producer. She's run businesses. She's been a founder and a president of her own gaming company. She's been a writer. She's now a creative director. She's really sort of run the gamut of almost every major sort of domain inside of gaming. I don't think she programs, but other than that. And I found this conversation really interesting because it gave me a lot of insight about how all of that experience is channeled and funneled when thinking about trends and when thinking about where the industry is going and when thinking about where the industry needs to go. So consider this a sort of general purpose exploration of the past, present, and future of someone who's been in the gaming space for a very, very long time. Anne Gibleault is a pleasure to talk to. I hope you enjoy the interview. Thank you very much. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Ben. How's it going?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
Other than all the
busy?
technical challenges, I'm doing great. So you're one of the first guests. I think we've maybe the third guest so far where we've tried to do this with video as well. So obviously there have been various technical challenges. You're also a guest who I've known for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I did an episode a few weeks ago with Kim Pallister, who I also have known for a long time, and he and I did this on video. And I thought it was fun for him to describe how we know each other, and I'll offer you the same. Would you like to open with why you and I know each other and there's this air of familiarity, or would you like me to do it? The choice is yours.
I can do it, and then you can pile up if I forget some important points and stuff like that. So, well, I know you. Actually, the first time I saw you, maybe you don't remember that, but you were at the head of Gibleault, Montreal, at that time on the fourth floor at the PEC building, that big Ubisoft,
the big Ubisoft mothership.
Yeah, exactly. So Gibleault was there, and I remember I had a friend that I've been to video game classes with, and he was working at Gibleault, and I was like, and I remember all those cell phones on the table, and this was in early 2004, so there was no iPhone and stuff like that, so it was flip phones and stuff like that.
The Nokia.
Yes, and I remember that he was telling, we have to test, because it's not the same system on all those phones, and we have to, and it's like, oh my God, that seems so complicated. I don't want to be working on that. And I was actually I was a 3D animator working on Prince of Persia at that time. And after that, if I recall correctly, we worked together on the Prince of Persia, the 2008 one, and this is the first true collaboration that we had together. You were the producer on that project. I didn't even finish up that project because I was transferred to being a trade director of animation at that time, and Yann-Eric took my place.
That's right.
On the team. And then after we worked together also on Legends.
That's right.
It's a code name. It's a sci-fi that never saw the day at Ubisoft with lots of promises, but it happens.
Yep.
It's hard
New
to
IP
find
is
that.
hard.
Yeah, that's it. It's really hard to find that core gameplay that really works. And it was a technical breakthrough.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. But then what to do with it? I think that was the remaining question for
Maybe one day we should ask Ubisoft if they'll let us do a Legends retrospective, and we could just talk about the process of what it was, what it wasn't, what it could have been. We can get Michael McIntyre and Thomas Delbuguet on the line, and we can all do a.
Hey, you know what? Actually, when I was back at Ubisoft at 2019, I saw Dan Desjardins, the 3D animator, and he was on Legend, and he showed me all that footage and all the tests and all the recordings from Legends, and he showed me that. I was like, oh, it's still relevant.
That would be amazing. I'd love to see that someday.
Yes.
But I mean, so you just talked about how you were a 3D animator, then you were an animation lead. You've worked as a craft lead, which not every company has, but Ubisoft obviously is large enough that it needs stuff like that. You've also been a producer, you've been a co-founder, you've been a designer, a writer, now a creative director. So, I mean, I don't know a lot of people who have done as many different things in the space of gaming as you. And the question I have here is like, what have you been chasing? Because clearly there's something that is very common across all of it for you, which is gaming and the love of gaming. And yet you've been doing a lot of different things. So is there something you've been looking for, or are you kind of just literally trying to have done one of everything in games before you retire?
No. Actually, when I was studying design and animation for a video game in early 2000s, I saw a job post from Ubisoft, and it was asking for a creative director position. Mm-hmm. And I didn't exactly know, but reading the description, it was obvious for me that, okay, this is the thing I want to do in life. But then I'm there now, but it took like almost 20 years to get there. It's been a long road. I think that I consider myself more creative than being a manager. But I think it's one of the things also in the industry regarding women, and I don't have any particular data regarding this. It's only from what I see and what I feel and talking with people. Very often in large studio like Ubisoft, I think within smaller companies, I think it's different, but in large studios like this, women are put in a management role way more than in directing roles. Okay. And I think it's a little sad. I think it's the image of a director that we kind of need to change. Of what is it that we need to have a good director? Is it really like someone that is able to talk loud and inspire in one certain way? I think there's many ways to inspire people and inspire team, but I think that it goes with the general profile of a lot of women, that they're maybe a little more organized. I don't like to go in and generalize about sexes, but there are some trends. Often women seems to be more organized. I consider myself to be totally unorganized, but I do organize myself because I know I'm chaotic. It's chaos in my head, so I need to organize myself. And I think this is why my second job at Ubisoft, they put me in a management role, and I've been an animator only 1 year, and then they put me being a lead animator. And I found it weird because this is what I reflect to other people, but inside I feel that I'm not organized. But when I look at it in perspective, and I remember on that first Prince of Persia, I was a junior animator, but at the end of the production, I was in charge of a little cell of animators with a programmer and a game designer, and we had to make, those Excel sheet lists of what kind of animation we have to do and how do we break that movement and stuff like that.
Excel sheets.
Yes, but it's true. I used to love it. So I guess I do have that kind of organization, but I think that a lot of women that I know at Ubisoft came from a dev point of view, being an artist or a programmer or whatever, but they were put more into managing position easier than in a pure creative position. So I think Actually, when I founded my co-founded my studio, I was a bit I don't know, not bitter because I didn't feel that way, but I felt that it was the only solution for me to be in a real creative role is to find my own company and write my own IP actually, which is a little sad.
I mean that is sad, and I'd love to. Well, basically, I'd love to let you just talk as much as you want about that challenge of a sort of being a woman in gaming. Clearly, not something I know anything about. But I was wondering, the way I thought the conversation could go is I again, because you've done so many different things, the angle that I thought would be really interesting is that when you say this is how hard it is to be a woman in gaming, the interview has taken us there through, and I've done this, and I've done big, and I've done small, and I've done management, and I've done creative, and I've done like, and so when I say it's hard to be a woman in gaming, this is not just I read it on Twitter. This is I've lived this. So I was wondering in getting there, in getting to that point, do you want to talk about like Ubisoft, big behemoth, and some of the things that it does well and some of the things that it, struggles with, and I guess your startup, tiny little agile nimble, some of its things that it does well and its challenges, and now kind of Phoenix, like somewhere in between. Do you want to talk about sort of like how the things that you've learned just in general, the things that you liked and didn't like in general about those different types of organizations in terms of sizes and structure that you've worked in?
Yeah, sure. But first, I just want to be clear on something. I think that the gaming industry or any industry is hard for everybody. I think making a video game is hard. It's something big. Yes. It's huge. To start a game and finish it and ship it, just this, successful or not, it's something really hard for women, men, whatever. I think it's the opportunities are not the same for men and women. I think this is the main difference. I don't think it's harder for one gender or the other, but I think the opportunities are different. And we just should pay attention to that. To go back to your question about, I really, really loved Ubisoft the time I was there. It was when I joined, it was in early 2004, like I said, and I think we were around 700 at that time. I think now they're like
Ubisoft.
Yes, tiny little Ubisoft. It was only like 2 floors at the PEC, and now I think they're like 38 or 3,900 or something like that. So it's huge. And I was back about a year ago at Ubisoft in 2019. So, and I saw the difference. The things I really liked about huge companies like this is that there's always someone somewhere within the company that knows something that you don't, and has an expertise that you cannot find easily on the market, and that everybody can help you. So if you're a curious person and you want to know more, well, Ubisoft is such a great place to be, because if you're not living in your little space and you open up and you start talking to people, not only on your production but in the company wide, you can learn a bunch of things. So I like that, and I like the services that we had at Ubisoft. It's like the legal department, the music department, the mocap department, the tools, the HR, the tools, the techno group, everything, the online group, everything is there. I mean, so you really can focus on what you have to do, and is to make a game, so all the rest, you have a lot of support, but that comes also with a more negative side, that it's the bureaucracy, it can take, there's a lot of departments, so if you need to do something, it's just you as a person cannot really do it. You have to talk to another department, and then it has to enter into their schedule and planning and stuff like that. And everybody has to agree that this is the thing to do, So sometimes it's a little bit frustrating, and it could be just on notes, if you're going to invite an actor at on lunchtime, then just the process to get reimbursement could be it could take a long time. It could be a burden.
Yep.
So it's just those
Yep.
little things that at the end it's like, are we really focusing on the good thing? And it's you can lose a little bit some time on things that are not really directly in the game.
And then what about the complete opposite when you left UB and then started your own company?
Well, it's the total opposite. You have to do everything. Everything. You have to become an accountant, the janitor, the HR. You have to be like everything. So it's amazing. It's a fun challenge actually, and I like varied tasks. So this was perfect actually. But the thing is that there's a lot of things that you don't know, and it takes a lot of time, and it's not really what's gonna really pay at the end.
That's right.
In your game. So when I build my teams, I really like the people to focus on what they're best at, and it's like, well, this is where the company is investing in, it's you and your talent and your craft, and this is what you should be doing most of your time. If you're starting to do like other things that you're not really good at, or you don't have a lot of experience, well, it's the trade is not that good. So that's the downside of a small company. You end up doing a lot of things that I don't know how to do that, and then in perspective, like 5 years after, and it's like, okay, it was not that complicated, but you have to dig and search, and you lose so much time in learning new trades actually.
None of which, as you said, pay the bills, and yet they have to be done or the lights don't stay on.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. And the mid-size, for now, the mid-size companies, it's like the sweet spot.
Yeah.
There's the structure that is there, so you get help from whatever department you need it, and you can focus on what you're paid to do, actually. So you can do it, but you get to know everybody by their first name, and how many kids they have and stuff like that. And for me, this is like the main. I remember when I entered the industry, the project you worked on was the most important thing. I'm working on this project, but now with people, like everybody's getting, not everybody, but a lot of people that I know are getting older.
Having kids, exactly.
Having kids, and now
sometimes having grandkids.
Oh shit, yes, but okay, not now for not for a few years for me, but in a few years it'll happen for sure. And actually, it's now getting older. The most important thing is to work with people who you're working with and how. And after, it's the project. It's still
culture
really
first, project second.
Yeah, exactly. That's really important actually. So the mid-sized thing is good, because on massive production like 400 or 500, I still I interview a lot of people. We're building the studio in Montreal, so I interview a lot of people, and a lot have been to Warner Brothers or Ubisoft and whatnot. And some people like, oh yeah, we were on the same project on Far Cry, but we don't remember each other. It's like, jeez, that's sad. I think it's a little sad. It's the same project, and we never talk to each other. It's I agree. No, I like to get to know everybody.
And so, on the subject of people and the value of working with good people, maybe this is an interesting question. Maybe it's not. If it's not, we'll strike it from the overall interview. But did you yourself ever have? I mean, I use the word mentor. It doesn't actually have to be that sort of typical mentor-mentee relationship, but someone who you really looked up to, you really learned a lot from, you felt like they had a sort of like outsized like overall contribution to who you are today, and Gibleault, the creative director of Phoenix Labs Montreal. Like, is there someone you had in your career that you really felt was important in helping you get there?
Yes, I think there are several actually. Some lasts a long time, some less, but the impact can be as strong. But the one person that hits my head right away is Catherine Roy.
Okay, great.
She was a producer on. I met her on King Kong, the game of the movie, and then after at the trade direction at Ubisoft Montreal. And well, first I consider Catherine to be really very intelligent. She understands complex problems and situations. But the most important thing is that she had no private agenda.
Okay.
She just, it's we have the things to do, and we believe this is the right thing to do for the company and for the people. So this is what we're going to focus on. And let's forget the rest, the internal little wars and battles and stuff like that, and the politics and everything. And of course, there is politics everywhere all the time.
Of course.
But she was putting this aside all the time, saying like, okay, but I'm not interested into that. Okay, now what do we do with this? And what's the best thing for the trade or whatever the problem was, And it was really inspiring to work with her.
That's wonderful. And certainly the ability to put ego aside and focus on what really matters. Not everyone can do that. And even those of us who like to say that we can probably sometimes don't. So someone who can deliver that consistently, that's fantastic.
Yes.
And do you happen to know where she is now? It kind of ties into my next question.
She's Catherine, where she is now? Yeah, she's VP at MDF. It's B2B
okay. So,
business.
So she's sort of out of games then?
Yes.
Our
Too
loss.
Bad.
Yeah. Well, then it only sort of ties into my next question, which is, well, in the year since Rovio Montreal has announced that it's opening here and Phoenix and whatnot, I count at least 10, if not 13. Last time I checked, I think there was 13 new studios that had announced an office here in Montreal since last May, all in gaming. And I'm wondering, as someone who's been working in games now in Montreal for a long time and has seen a lot of bust times and boom times and companies come and companies go and that kind of thing, what do you feel about the current trajectory of growth inside Montreal, in particular as a gaming hub? Is it a good thing? Is it sustainable? Do you have any things that make you a little concerned? Just in general, what are your thoughts about all of the action going on right now?
I think it's a positive thing. I think it is sustainable. We have now university that has adapted. When I was in school, it was a 1-year program. It was, and it wasn't really. There was a certificate given, but it was not part of like a college diploma or anything like that. And now you can see there are a bunch of it. Even in programming, I don't think at that time it was programming for video games. It was just the programming thing. So I think that now we can back it off on the long term. And I actually teach at the NAD Center that is now part of Université du Québec à Chicoutimi, and they have the animation and design program. And I call them the kids because I feel very old when I talk to them, but I see the kids that their knowledge is like so much more than the knowledge about video games that I had at that time. It was such a new industry. It was new trades. We were inventing roles as we were making games, and we still are, I think. So, and for me, it's really important, the balance of seniority and having some juniors within the group, not only to think about the future, but we do need those fresh eyes about the industry we're working in. So I think that there's that that relève. I don't know what's the word in English. La relève, the newcomers that will, eventually
next wave.
the next wave. We will retire one day or not. But then, who's going to be there? Well, I think we'll have more and more people raising their hands and being interested in the industry in Montreal.
Great. And I actually have a whole section here about trends, so we'll jump into that in a second. And I think your point about the students and the kind of younger generation as really sometimes having their finger on the pulse of trends is a really good one. But before we get to that, I want to ask about your kids, right? So you've got children, as do I, and again, many developers these days do, right? Because we are. Some of us getting older a little bit. Do your own kids have any interest in making games? Do you have any interest in them making games?
I would like them to make games, and I'm trying to make them interested, but they're like, no, they're not at all. My son is playing a lot, a lot. But when it's time to say, do you want to know how we make games? And I can show you stuff and whatnot. And it's like, no, I just want to play them,
Right.
It's like,
right.
For now, he's 12. He's turning 12 this week. So, and my daughter, she's playing Sims. She's playing Animal Crossing.
Who isn't?
Who isn't? We're still playing sometimes Rayman Legends because it's a co-op game, so it's really fun to play together. She's not playing so much of that. She played almost all teenagers last year Among Us, but she's not playing anymore at all.
Yeah.
So she's not really into it. I think that she's not passionate about it so much to think about it as a future and as a trade. So, but we'll see later. She's 15, and
of course.
We'll see what's happening. Yeah. She wants to study in science, so we'll see where that leads.
Yeah, that's great. And but if they did have an interest, you would support it. That's great because
100%. And I don't get why they don't. I don't get honestly why they don't.
I mean, you can imagine there might be the occasional developer who, once they know how the sausage is made, they're like, oh my God, I don't want my, too much crunch, and oh no, free to play mechanisms are poison. They're poisoning our youth. I know how they do it. I don't want my kids associated with that. You could imagine that there might be some people who, once they got deep into the process of making games, might decide, no, you know what, I'm in, but I don't want my family in. But the fact that you would like your kids to make games, I think is really interesting and certainly a value that I share.
Well, I always saw video games being three things. It's an entertainment as a whole, but there's a art part.
Yes.
There's a software part, and there's that fun entertainment business part, and you have to make a whole all of this. And I always put emphasis on the art side towards my kids and to most people, actually, because it's I don't know why people like to critic video games so much, like non-gamers and people from that don't really play video games. It's rare that they say well, I don't really care. But very often I hear that, I don't like video games. It's it's like you say you don't like movies. It's like, I'm sure that there are some kind of movies that you would like. I mean, if you don't like action movies, I get it. If you like Swedish movies, I get that too. But you cannot put all the movies in one big basket saying all movies are bad. For me, it's the same for video games, and I was trying for a while to get the kids. My daughter, like I said, is pretty good and interested in science, but she's also a very good artist. She draws beautifully, and she's really good. And it's you can create beautiful things in video games. It's just not an entertainment product. It could be a piece of art. There are video games that are really, they're beautiful. They're a poem. They're really personal also. And now. Okay then. So
have you got her to play Child of Light?
No, I should.
You should.
I should. It's true.
You should.
I should. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about trends. Before we get into the specifics of how you learn about trends and that kind of stuff, I thought it would be fun to have you talk a little bit about mechanics or gaming trends that really kind of caught your attention over your whole career? It doesn't have to be recently. It can be whenever. So, I know my mechanics. Like, I know the game I wish I had made. It's been the same game my whole career, right?
What is it?
I always wished I had been on that original Guitar Hero. Like, that just feels to me like it was such an important moment in time. It was mass market. It bridged the gap between, music and games. Mechanically, It was brilliant. That's always been my, I wish I had been involved in that. So I'm wondering, do you have one? Do you have either a game or a mechanic that your whole career you really wished you had been part of?
One game that blew me away when I discovered it the first time was Portal.
Okay.
So I guess that would, oh my God, if one day I create something like so fresh, so simple in the same way, because now we know it and it's like, well, it's, Portals, it's simple. But the first time when I saw it, it was like, oh my God, this is like the best invention on the planet, and I was crazy about that. There was also the narrative inside the game that was
great.
Everything about that game was like so good. So this would have been like, wow, what an achievement. Another one that actually it's a game I worked on at the time of Ubisoft, right after Legends. Actually, I worked on a Just Dance game, and I think that this is again a truly really nice invention. A little bit like Guitar Hero. It's to be able to mix dance with a video game. It's an achievement. It's something really nice, and I think it's one of the best production I've worked on. Also, it was really short. We were doing actually the Xbox 360 version before Just Dance 3. It was only on the Wii, and starting with the Just Dance 3, we ported it on the Kinect. It was a nice challenge, but it was a very dense period of time. But the thing is that when you enter each morning in the studio and on the floor, on the Just Dance floor, you see like probably half the team standing up and having to try and dancing, and that, that shy programmer that usually don't talk so much, and he's there, he's dancing, he's laughing because he knows he probably is a bit ridiculous, but it's part of the game, everybody was smiling all day long on that lovely production. So I think that the product you work on does have an impact on the morale and the attitude of everybody on the floor. So for that reason, Just Dance has that special place in my heart. And I think that the creation, the invention of that gameplay mechanic of having actually just, it's kind of a mirror, actually. And you really feel like it. The first time I tried Just Dance, we were in a room in Ubisoft, and there was a big TV on the wall. It was shut down. We were looking at another TV. And then at one point we were dancing and we were having fun. And what you watch on the screen, you rapidly become to believe that it's you. And that you dance like this. And then I turned around, I did a move, I turned around and I see my reflection in TV, and I saw how bad of a dancer I was. And I was like,
oh man.
Oh, okay, it's tricking me for real. I really get the impression that I'm dancing like dancer on screen.
For years, my kids, I would just turn on a Just Dance YouTube video. There was no camera. They were just dancing to the YouTube video. It was like they were 7 or 8 before they clued into the fact that wasn't them dancing. They're going like this, and the person on the camera is, doing whatever their moves are, and they thought, "Oh yeah, look, I'm perfect." And they're flopping their arms all over. So I think that's a great answer for a specific mechanic or game. Yeah. Now, I guess, and this is going to get to the question about trends, but so when I talk about a trend inside gaming, like what I mean is something like, I don't know, like free to play, so something big and broad that then became a staple across many, many, many games. Open world, free to play, competitive online, deception maybe inside of a gaming, or duplicity. Like those are kinds of examples of what I mean as a trend. And obviously some free to play are bigger than others, duplicity. Are there any trends that, you wish you had gotten in on earlier, or that you that you would wish you'd participated in the trend, not the specific mechanic.
Yeah. Online co-op.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish I would start my own studio now and do that type of game, because I think it's doable. Like, I'm a big fan of Phasmophobia.
Yes.
I play it several times a week still, and I think that the pandemic helped in that way. That I'm a social person, and I used to go to some bars and happy hours after work at least twice a week, to talk with friends and stuff like that. And I miss that. So Phasmophobia gave us the perfect opportunity, actually, to put on Discord, to put the webcam, to have a glass of wine at night and play that game. It's about like 10, 15 minutes each session, each game. So we can play like 4 or 5 games in one night and have fun together. And it's not competitive. So we can take our time and we can take it easy and just, talk for a while and say, like, okay, we'll go in the house after. Let's pick up some instruments and let's grab the inventory and go inside. But then we can talk. Oh, how is your day? And how's the kid? And blah, blah, blah. So it's like the tension is there. I think that the realization globally of that game seems to be really bad. It's only one guy. I'm so impressed because it's only one guy that did that game. He's from England, and he did that adventure solo, and I'm amazed by that, because it's simple mechanics, but it's every game session is different because of the ingredients that he put in our hands. And I think it's brilliant. And this is we don't have to have millions and millions and millions of dollars often to have a good idea. Again, I don't think that Phasmophobia, I think he sold between 5 and 10 million. So it's approximate numbers, but this is what Steam Spy is telling me, that he sold.
Not bad for one dude.
Not bad for one dude. So it's getting on that, or the case of behavior with Dead by Daylight with asymmetrical PvP. I think it's also brilliant. I think they mastered it, and their success is great. I'm so happy for them, because I know they've been looking for to have that their own game, their own IP for a long time, and there's been Wet before that they didn't reach that success. So I think that those co-op games, but they're not easy to do. I'm playing a few, and it's not all of them are successful. The balancing of the game, the overall experience it's hard to reach, actually, a good experience in co-op.
Okay. Well, no, but I think that's great. So like online cooperative and community games, right, where that social experience is 50% or more of the overall fun factor. I think absolutely the pandemic has like driven a stake in that as like super duper important. And I think they've been here for a long time, but I think the pandemic has really cemented them, and I think they will become incredibly important moving forward. Games designed around the social meta in a very, very strong way. I very much agree with you there.
Yes, and it's the same, even if it's not. Well, you can play in co-op, but it's always a PvP. My son is playing Fortnite a lot. And in the pandemic, like when the schools were shut down, I would give him almost unlimited hours to play, because it was the only moment during the day that he could talk to his friends, and exchange and have that social thing that is so important to all humans. So even if it's not pure co-op, just having the online experience and be able to invite your friends and being part of the same experience, it's amazing. That's a nice trend.
And one thing that's really interesting is the safe space. Right, like when we grew up playing, the Counter-Strike or whatever, Team Fortress. We used to play Team Fortress, right? Team Fortress 2 all the time at lunches on Legends. Well, the match starts 3, 2, 1, go, and you're in danger, right? Right off the bat, you're in danger. So you better be on the ball. there's not a lot of opportunity to just sit back and drink your wine in game, right? Sure, you can turn around and say, hey, Anne, good kill or whatever, but to be in game and just kind of drink your wine doesn't really work. Whereas I think what's one of the brilliant things that Fortnite has done is, whether it be in creative mode or, whatever, party royale or whatever, there is that sort of safe hub where you can just be a jerk. You can just fool around with your friends and be silly. And then 3, 2, 1, go, actually have the gameplay experience. And that to me feels like a really important trend, where we have these online spaces that then launch the games, and we can be together in these online spaces. Yeah. Okay, so then last point about trends, and then we'll move on to the next subject. So you were talking earlier about the mix between seniors and juniors, and the next generation, and how they have, whatever, a new perspective. Do you have any other tricks to stay abreast of trends? Like, you're a creative director. Like, theoretically, you should play all the games, and you should watch all the movies and read all the books,
of course,
and all the comics and all the magazines and all the websites and all the tweets. Like, that would be ideal, right? As if you could literally just funnel everything and have perfect visibility. Of course, that's not possible. So how do you stay abreast? How do you kind of funnel what information matters to you so that you can choose what to read a summary on versus what you actually play versus whatever, all of the different techniques and tactics that you might have to consume this media and this content?
Well, first of all, I'm not trying to know everything. Like I said, and like you said, we should know everything, but meh. Forget
Can't
it.
do it.
So it's more on focusing. Some type of games I don't really play MMORPGs. I don't play them, and for me it would be like a big ramp up to say, like, I'm gonna become an expert into that. I've never played those games, and I'm not playing those games, so I could do it because I'm sure I'd be interested if I dig into it just a little bit, and then I would discover something big. But the thing is that I prefer to focus on things that I already know a little and try to know more about those topics. So yes, I do have that, that Google News that filters for me the latest game trends and stuff, news, actually, more than trends, game news and stuff like that. And it's being in contact with other people and never being scared of saying, like, I don't know that. And I don't know more things that I know things,
Right.
So it's obvious, and I think that everybody has a different knowledge about everything. So being in contact and have open discussions very often, and I put places on that. Like, every morning at 9:30 we meet, like if we were at the office, although it's on Zoom. But every day at 9:30, it was like this at IDOS. I would do the same thing every morning. The entire team is there, and we can talk about whatever. It's like when you arrive at the office, at the studio, and you go to the coffee machine, and then you just chat with people. And, oh, what did you play yesterday, or what movie did you watch, or whatever. It's just that small talk that opens up in the broader conversation and more specific conversation. So for me, I think it's impossible to cover 100% of the trends and the space market. But then again, it's focusing not to know everything at 100%, but to get better at certain things and be almost an expert at certain things and level up on all the other things. I was mentioning MMORPGs, and I don't know that space, and I don't know the really deep core mechanics of those games. But this is something that, for me, it's on my checklist for the next year, to get
something
to know
learn about
more. Not becoming an expert. Like, I don't aim at that at all. But just enhance my knowledge about that.
Great.
Actually.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm really anxious to see what Raf Koster. So he was the design lead on a bunch of MMOs. I did play a bunch of MMOs growing up, so I played Ultima Online and Shadowbane and EverQuest and that kind of stuff. And he worked on a bunch of those games, Star Wars Galaxies, that kind of thing. And he's starting a new cloud MMO company called Playable Worlds. And I'm very curious to see what they're doing.
I'll check that.
Yeah, their manifesto is very interesting. And yeah, take a look at that one.
Yes,
yeah.
I will.
Okay, so we touched upon this at the beginning. The question of sort of I guess like professional diversity, women in gaming, and the challenges of opportunity, as you put it. Again, I am as privileged as it gets when it comes to my career in gaming. I'm a middle class, white, straight male. I've very rarely been subject to any sort of problems or harassment or anything along those lines, or even glass ceilings and that sort of stuff. So really, I mostly want to just give a platform and probably won't ask a ton of questions because I probably don't have the right questions. But I did have one for you, which is that, did you ever feel like you wanted to leave gaming? Like, was it ever too much for you where you're like, oh God, this is wrong. I've got to get out and try and do something else.
Oh yeah, for sure. When I left Ubisoft in 2015, and after I was at Red Barrels for almost a year, and after that I quit for about 6 months, and I was on sabbatical. But at that time, I wanted to just go away from the gaming industry. I felt I didn't fit in anymore, but I think that it's really not unique to me or unique to my gender. I think that a lot of people, when they're hitting between 40 and 50, everybody's asking themselves like, you know what, I think I'm too old for that, and I think I'm just going to switch, do something else. So I think almost 100% of the people that I know are thinking this at one point. And I think there's multiple reasons. I think there's like brand fatigue. A lot of people that I know are from Ubisoft Montreal, and I think that working on more or less the same titles over and over again, it's kind of, I want to do something else, and I would like to have a more personal title to work on and stuff like that. So I think that it's more a question of, I'm tired of the politics, I'm tired of the business itself, and it's complex, and I think that I would like to take it easy for a while. But most people I know are coming back in the industry because we're passionate. And actually, I realized that when I quit Ubisoft the first time in 2014, I haven't played video games really for the last like 2-3 years. And when I quit, and in my mind I was quitting the video game industry in 2015, I started playing again.
And you rediscovered
it. And I rediscovered it, and I discovered the indie scene, which I wasn't that much aware when I was in big studios, because you work on like those big titles, and it's like, this is what you look at, and this is your business placement. So this is what you're looking at most of the time. So I really discovered the indie scene, and I was like, oh no, okay, I remember why I came into the video game industry. It's because I really like that product. I really like the interaction we get with an art piece, So so it bring me back into creating my own studio and start on my own stuff. But yes, to answer your question, yes, I did thought of leaving.
And it's funny, like usually when people talk about diversity in gaming, my perception is that there's probably 2, maybe 3 camps. There's race, sex, maybe sexual orientation. Those are probably the 3 main camps that people think about when they think about diversity. But of course, there's age, right? And of course, ageism can go both ways. There can be the, okay, young grasshopper, you just sit there and do what you're told, which can be super frustrating for these young, brilliant up-and-comers with all these great ideas, just looking for their chance to break through and make a difference. And then, of course, there's the opposite as well, where it's like, okay, grandpa, like, you go and play Super Mario Brothers, and like us kids who actually know what's going on, we'll make the next big thing. And that can be super frustrating as well. So across the board, when it comes to diversity, across all of those and others that I might be missing, do you think we're getting better as an industry? Is the industry getting more diverse and better at working with diverse groups of collaborators, or not?
Right now, I don't think so. Right
Okay.
now, I think that the numbers aren't changing. They're changing in like big companies where you have communication department and HR department and stuff like that. But in dev, I think the numbers aren't really changing. Maybe just a few percentage for the past 20 years, which is, it's not that good. But I think we're talking about it way more than we used to.
Okay.
And so I think it is going to change. And I think I do it one by one. Like we talked a little earlier, Ben, and when you posted the first time your first hires for the Rovio studio in Montreal, and I say congrats, that's cool. I'm so happy for you, and blah blah. But privately, I sent you a message saying, "Hey, take care because you're going to be too many one gender in your studio, and after that, it's going to be harder to make a woman enter the circle because it's never fun to be the lone person, the one alone." So, and it could be comfortable. Some women don't care, but I know that if you're like 35% and you're all white man, it might be a little bit more uncomfortable to be the first woman or the first black person or whatever. And you said, I know, but I don't have resume. Like I've posted the jobs and whatnot, and nobody's applying, and I get that it takes, and this is the time that I am personally taking. Like I'm not the kind of person that will like manifest out loud, and I was about to say do concrete things, but I think that's the thing I do are really concrete. But I'm not really going into so much panels about
You're not diversity. Standing on the soapbox.
Yeah, that's it. But what I do is I take time. When we have to hire people, especially in leadership roles, it's like I said at Ubisoft Montreal. I think that I've known only 2 directors that were women amongst so many teams. And I still wonder why the gap is so wide and is so big. And I happened to learn, and it started at IDOS, and now it's the same at Phoenix Lab. It happens to be that when I poke people, because I know that if I post that I want a programming director or artistic director or animation director, I know that most resumes that I'll get will be men. But what I have to do is to go and knock on doors and say like, hey, you know what? You've been in the industry in that role, assistant director or lead for a few years, and I would like you to be a director now on my team. And most women are like, are you crazy? I've never done that. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm the right person. And it's they're so scared of failure, it's not that insane. Oh yeah, I want more, and I'm going to prove them that I'm good at it. And wow, that's a nice challenge. It's like, oh my God, no, I'm scared, and it's like, of course you're scared. I'm scared too, but let's be scared together. So we're going to be less scared about what's going to happen. And, when making a game, it's a team thing, it's not a solo thing. We're part of a team. So nobody fails alone. It's impossible. There's, if something is not working out and you have to cancel again, whatever the problem is on your project, it's never a one person thing. It's always a team thing. So it's building that confidence, and it takes time because you have to get to know those persons, because some person that I poke, I don't personally know them. They were referred to me. So it's taking the time to really get to know what is it that you want to do. Oh, I don't want to be a director ever. Oh no, why not? What's the things that you think you don't like about being a director? And then it's taking the time to understand this and what they see about being a director and what it is to be a director and what can we do to support you in this. But it takes time and energy, and I get that it's not the first thing on the agenda of everybody. I do get that, but for me, if I can leave something in the industry, in the Montreal land about video game, is this. I want to take that time, and I want to say to the younger generation that everybody can do it. I can do it. I'm not perfect. I don't know anybody. And it's like, no, I don't know everything, and I don't consider myself like the most complete person on the planet to make video games, not at all. But it's people, Andre and people from Phoenix Lab had enough confidence in me saying like, we believe you can do this. For me, it's enough to say like, okay, I should consider it then.
Right.
And then it doesn't put all the scare away, because I think that most people I know have the imposter syndrome, and so do I. But it's good because I'm questioning myself all the time, and I'm really open about it with my teams. And then when you just scratch a little, you see that everybody's a little scared. It's like,
well, we're all pretty much just making this up as we go along, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's just to. And this is not the image that we often has. Like in a lot of teams, the directors were like, they look so sure of themselves, and rarely they were like, I don't know. I've never done this before. I don't know if it's the right thing. I feel bad, but I have to make a decision. So what am I going to do? And he's right, but she's right too. And it's all this, going in the brains of everybody. But very often in teams, you don't want directors that look weak or not sure, because the project has to have a clear direction, because an unclear direction is really not fun for an entire team. It's okay in conception, but when you start to grow in pre-prod and in prod, it has to be like the vision has to be quite solid. But it's how to build that confidence, because when we make a game, and that on every game we work on, we want to make the best game
ever
possible, ever. But it doesn't happen all the time. There's a lot of games that were okay, but not that good, and didn't sell that much. And we're all learning.
Best game ever.
Yeah. So it's a rare thing, and people have to know this.
Yeah.
That this is what's spinning in everybody's head. Even the most confident person is always full of doubt. And are we doing this? Because it's new things we're doing. In every game, there's new things we're learning. And we have to make them, prototype them, test them, and see if it works or not. Because designing on paper and then having actually on the screen after, there's always like a big learning into that, in that loop. So it's just to take confidence that the ideas you have, the vision you establish for the game is this. It's a vision. It's how to communicate that vision to people so they can grab it. And it's incredible how many versions of that vision you can get. And it's part of the communication, like I say something, you understand something else, and then you will act differently on what I say. But again, for me, it's the process, and it's to gain confidence into that process. So again, it takes time.
Well, hopefully, in the same way that Catherine Roy was a sort of mentor to you, you're in this position now where, again, hopefully what you're able to do is bring up women into director roles, whether it be at Phoenix Labs or whatever is in the future. Because I think I think you nailed it. The industry hasn't changed enough, but at least we're talking a lot about it. And if people like you turn, and hopefully me and everyone listening to this, turn those words into actions and take the time and give the right opportunities, and then mentor those people who maybe didn't necessarily have the confidence to apply for the job in the first place.
Yes.
There's some great things that can happen.
Yes, I wish.
Any closing statements? I've really enjoyed this conversation. It went to places that I was expecting. It went to places that I wasn't expecting. Anything that you thought we were going to maybe dive into, or that you would want to touch upon that we didn't get a chance to drill into?
No, the only thing I want to bounce back on that trends that we were talking about. And when I said like co-op, I see more and more games where the first action is not to shoot someone else in the face. And I love this. And they're still exciting, engaging, fun, complex, deep, intelligent. I love that. That there's a place on the market for that, and there are some companies focusing on that and have those values at core. I think that shooting is one of the easiest mechanism, and it's there way longer before video games like throwing arrows or whatever. It's fun, and it's a
Yep.
thing that
It's
humans
burned
have
into
been
our
doing.
DNA.
It is. I get that, but there is also something else, and I'm pretty curious about what AI will bring also into all the language methods. Now some AI can write entire articles on certain topics, and I think it's amazing. Like, I want to see the Sims plus with that, where I can really see personal stories happening between the characters and
Absolutely.
just putting some personality into it, some little threads. But then after that, they get to live their lives, and I can play God a little, but they do have their own story, and they're living alone. I think, like, I see video game in the future. Like, again, I think we just see a small part of it, of what it'll become.
We need to get Peter Molyneux back into the industry with a huge budget and tons of AI people, and have him make a new goddess.
Yes, I agree.
All right. All right. Well, Anne, thank you so much. We're hitting the hour mark, which is a strong sign that we should wrap up here. Again, lovely to catch up with you. All the best for you and Phoenix Labs and the team there. I'm super anxious to see what you guys are doing. And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks, and I wish you all the same with Rovio Montreal, Ben, and all the best to your team and you.
All right. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for yet another episode of the Tomorrow with Rovio podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ben Mattis. Thank you very much to my guest today, Anne Gibleault, for joining us. If you enjoyed this style of interview where we don't necessarily dive into a specific theme, but rather cover the industry broadly, both in terms of where it's been, where it is, and where it's going, please don't hesitate to let me know. There's lots and lots of guests that I can bring on who have very interesting sort of career stories that might be fun to explore. And of course, if you are someone who has a story that you would like to tell, by all means, let me know. I'd love to have you on the podcast. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Thanks as always for listening. Have a great day.